Hi.
Hi.
Okay, well, hi everyone. So welcome to the May 12th City Council Committee on Finance. A reminder that we are being audio and video recorded. And yeah, let's go on. We're going to do tonight we have a presentation on the third quarter financial report and then a brief discussion on the budget hearings coming up. And we will start with any public comment, but we'll do roll call first. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Maori,
Here.
Councilor Moulton,
Here.
Councilor Elkins,
Here.
and Councilor Labarge.
Here.
Excellent. Okay. So let's just see if there's any public comment before we move on to our presentation.
You're going to approve the minutes?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Councilor Bar.
You're welcome.
Labarge.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't get them distributed, so they're not available.
Oh, okay. So that makes it easy.
Yeah, she didn't make them out. She hasn't sent them yet.
But thank you for the reminder. Okay, let me just check for any hands up. You can raise your virtual hand if you're would like to speak. And if not, we will move on to Director Nardi's third quarter financial report presentation. I don't see any hands, so welcome. Welcome, Director Nardi. And Laura, are you able to share your screen? I could or Director Nardi.
So if I may.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. Tonight, I am here to report on the third quarter 2025 revenues and expenditures for both the general fund and the enterprise funds. So if I may share my screen.
Councilor Labarge. Listen, I can't talk. I'm zooming for 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Can you see those, the revenue?
Yeah.
So this is the general fund revenue, and basically in reviewing it, we are on track with the budget. Personal property and is at 75%, which tracks and is slightly higher percentage than the FY 2022, 23, and 24 percentages. Real estate is at 73%, which is right in line with the prior 3 years. Motor vehicle excise, and just so I'm here at the top, and I'm actually looking at the percent column here on the right. Motor vehicle excise at 2.2 million is at 77%, and that's right here. Budget is 2.9. We're at 77% with still 666,000 to collect. This is slightly lower in dollars than the same time period last year in 2024 by about $165,000. We have collected the bulk of the motor vehicle excise tax, but as I said, we are $666,000 short of the projection. Funds do continue to come in through the end of June, and we are expecting maybe a little bit of bump when there's conversation where people have bought cars because of the upcoming tariffs. So we might see that in the final quarter. As a reminder, we increased this projection by 300,000 or 11.6% over last year. The hotel motel amounts, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move the Zoom so I can see, is exceeding the budget estimate. We're at $867,039, and it's exceeding the budget estimate, but is only 5,000 more than last year. So we increased this budget projection by 12% over last year, and we increased it again in FY 2026 by another 11.6%. The meals tax at $615,574 or 80. What am I going across right? Excuse me, sorry. Is at 84.9%. This is exceeding projections at 75% through the year. It is $26,000 higher than the same time last year. Again, we increased this projection by 11.6% last year. Cannabis revenue at $882,000. is exceeding projections. It's at 119.8% of the projected budget and is 220,000 more than the same time last year. We decreased this budget projection in FY 2025 because it had been dropping each year since the height of it for the last 3 years. However, at the end of 2024, after the budget was set, we saw an increase and it appears to be continuing the positive trend in FY 2025. We increased this projection in FY 26 by another 22% based on this recent data. Pilots, payment in lieu of taxes here, this last bottom section here. As you can see, we've collected most of them. And these are actually amounts that are estimated in the spring, but are invoiced and spelled out based on signed agreements and then calculated using the most recent assessed values and the tax rate set in the fall. So this report is as of March 31st, 2025. So it isn't showing all the payments received after that date. We will have all of these or will receive all of these by the end of the year. In looking at page 2, go to that. Parking revenues. Collectively, the third quarter parking revenues are $1.4 million, and it is higher compared to the $1.3 million from last year at the same time. It's an increase over last year of $99,000. We increased this revenue projection for FY 2026 by 18.8%. All revenues that are above the projections go to support the parking system. So the city only keeps what it projects, anything above that or below. So either if it's above, it goes to the parking system maintenance. If it's below, we take from that reserve to make the budget whole. Ambulance services continues to be a significant source of revenue at $2.9 million. That's what we brought in. And let me see, we're up here, $2.9 million. We still have $157,000 to collect, but we are at 94.9% of the budget. We increased this budget projection by 10.8% in FY 2025 and are increasing it again in FY 26 by another 13.3%. Charges for services, which is this whole section here, is at 79.3%. However, when you remove the Smith-Voc tuition, which is just a pass-through, charges for services are at 107%, 107.4%. But the amount that we've collected over budget is just $27,000. The licenses and permits, going to the next page, starts with this one. We are at 103.8% of the category, or a total of $48,304 over the budget. We increased this budget category in FY 26 by 15.29%. Federal revenues, which is our Medicaid reimbursement to the schools for services that are provided to students under this eligible category. It actually starts, we are at 62.3% of the budget projection. We generally see a large payment in late May, early June, so I expect to meet the projection. While a lot is unknown with Medicaid, and depending on who you listen to, I did go to the MGFOA conference where a state official said that Medicaid may be safe in FY 2026, but will be most likely impacted in FY 2027. State revenue, let's drop down here. State revenue starts here. These are the cherry sheets. It goes on to page 4. These are all the cherry sheet numbers. They come in right about every quarter. They come in from the state. So we are just at 75%. Parking tickets, which is right here. We are at 98.2% of the budget. This line was increased by 21.2% over FY 2024. Excuse me, at the wrong, yes, I'm sorry. We collected 98.2% of the budget. We still have 10,515 to collect. We did increase this line by an additional 23.77% for FY 2026. The miscellaneous, Councilor Mary, do you want me to blow this up a little more?
I actually can see it.
Okay. Miscellaneous category has the interest on investment that is at $2.1 million. This budget projection was increased by 1,065.62% or $2 million for FY 2026. As a reminder, this is because of the new SOFR, Secured Overnight Financing Rate, banking account that has provided a significant increase in this budget line. This vehicle was offered for the first time in FY 2023, which is when shortly after our treasurer moved funds into it. There is no guarantee that this type of account will always be available. However, we are taking a calculated risk by increasing this line and using this revenue to support the budget in FY 2026. So overall, general revenues are in sync with budget projections at 78.7%. And if we remove the Smith vocational tuition and the parking revenues, because we only are able to use the budgeted amount, the projected budget amount, then we are at 78.4% with $22,969. I'm not speaking well tonight, I apologize. $22,969,755 left to collect in revenue at this time during the year, at 75% through the year. Moving on to just a close-up of the meals, hotel, motel, and cannabis. This is the same information in that sum report, but it's a comparison from year to year. You can compare FY22 all the way up to FY25, each of the quarters together and where we're heading. Moving on to enterprise fund revenue. Everything is tracking as expected. The enterprise funds are running ahead of budget expectations. These percentages look very similar to actually FY 2021 as I compared each year. Just as a reminder, the budgets have not changed in 4 to 5 years. So these, I mean, unless you have specific questions, I don't have much to say about these. There is a little bit extra you'll see in the solid waste sale of stickers, landfill stickers, and that is because of the fact that normally we start selling stickers in June of the prior year, and that goes into that year's revenue. And last year we didn't start selling until July. So there's a lot more revenue in FY 2025, where generally it's split throughout the summer. Moving on to general fund expenditures. If you look again at the report, you will see each department with their PS, which is their salary lines, and their OM, which is ordinary maintenance, which is their expense lines. If you travel all the way to the left, the last column is the percent used. Scanning through quickly, just looking at the column, it gives you a good indicator of how things are going in each department. At this time, most everything should be at or below 75%. And just a reminder, this report is printed. It was printed just last Thursday. However, it stops as of March 30th. So not all of March's payroll is in there. That's why you'll see payroll is a little bit down from the 75%. And then, so the payroll and those will be behind a little bit. And then OM for some departments, especially DPW and when we talk about the enterprise funds, run a little bit slower because they gear up and do their projects starting in the spring and they go over into the fall. So those funds tend to be held over and encumbered each year for projects that are ongoing. You will see on page, when we talk about DPW, as always at the end of the year, we have year-end transfers. Snow and ice is in a deficit. This is the only budget that can actually maintain a deficit throughout the year until it's covered at the end of the year. So we are at $208,000 that will need to be covered when I do year-end transfers, which will be brought forward in June. Also, when you look at them, if you go to the end of this report and you're out of each department, you'll see that lump sums were done. So that's why you'll see 100%. Otherwise, some of them are behind, and the other ones are, you'll see they're greater than 75%, and that's because we've done, the funds have all been spent out of that fund for the time being.
Director Nardi, in the previous slide, the assessor's capital, that seemed to be above 75%. I was curious about it.
So yes, so that, whoops, let me get up there. Assessors. So assessor's capital, that was done for the revaluation. So every 5 years, we do a massive reevaluation of all property, and that capital fund is used for that. So that funding was used this year. We used $187,000 to do that.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
excuse me, am I reading that right? Let me move.
40.
Yes. So
Hmm.
we do hire experts that help us in doing that process. Any other questions with that line?
And
Any other line?
counselors, feel free just to ask questions directly because it's a little difficult to see hands with the slides up. So.
All right, and then moving on to the enterprise expenses. Expenses are tracking as Director LaScalia expects. As mentioned before, the enterprise fund percentages are generally lower due to carryovers and carry forwards due to the ongoing projects that cross over the fiscal years. As everyone knows, there is a lot of vacancies still in the DPW enterprise and DPW general fund departments or divisions. So PS lines are much lower than expected generally.
Councilor Labarge, did you have your hand up? I have a question.
No.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You're just thinking. My question is, yeah, so the personnel, and do we know how many years in a row or how many quarters in a row those same vacancy rates have been maintained? And is there a certain time when you kind of reassess about the vacancy rates?
So I think the mayor will talk about this more, but excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I know we've had difficulty in the DPW ever since the pandemic. There just haven't been enough people to fill. And I know that there has been a lot of talk on how we address that. I think there has been conversations with Director LaScalia of how we can address that, whether it be through negotiations to better fill those vacancies. I know because we don't have the personnel that we are using contractors until we address that. But I believe that's been part of the conversation between the mayor and Director LaScalia of how do we actually address and bring people back, because it always makes sense more to have our own personnel doing the work than hiring contractors. But I think they are weighing those balances. As we move forward, they will do more of that.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question at the budget hearings for the director.
I got my hand up now, Rachel.
Okay, go for it.
Yes, Rachel, I want to thank you for that question, because that was important about contracting on the outside. I'm hearing a lot about that. Even on Cardinal Way, they had a firm there cutting trees, city trees. And I had residents concerned off of Perchbert Road of how come they're cutting city trees. And I said, I don't know. So I did call Cindy, and she explained to me that they do cutting for the city anyways. So
Yeah.
My main concern is the last time we had heard from Donna that she was like 30 or 31 positions short at that time. And basically, it's seasonal that we're hearing. So I don't know what that level is as far as how many she has hired, but I know she did state seasonal was a big problem.
Yeah, and I would really defer to Director Lascalia to speak about her divisions and where her challenges are and where her actual vacancy rate is.
Uh-huh.
Like you, I mean, the number of vacancies is very high. But I think I'm hopeful that we'll see a
change.
glimmer of hope in the future as we put positions back out, and that we'll get more people in. But again, Director Lascalia is better to speak to that than I am.
Yeah, because I do know other cities are having the same problem. Even on Cardinal Way is an assistant director in Long Meadow, big problem. The same as Donna. I don't know how they're doing now, but I'll have to ask her about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about, I see that we have below 75 and you kind of explained that, with like the storm, say, for example, the storm drains, OM. Is it that we are appropriating funds that aren't being fully utilized, or is it that they are the way over time that they are spent?
Well, I think so. I think part of it is the projects usually, and again, Director Scalia is better to speak to this than I am, but projects start in the spring and they go through to the fall. So she will encumber a lot of this money to continue the projects that begin in the construction season. Because obviously they're not doing a lot of drain except maintenance. If a drain, like if a line breaks, they're not doing work during this, the winter season. So those projects start in the spring, and then she carries over the money for ongoing projects, and it gets completed in the fall. Does that make sense? So, because you can't do construction when the ground is frozen.
Right. So it's going to appear rather jagged over the year.
Yes. Yes. And they are always a little bit low. If you go back years, all of the OM is low. Capital too, these OM capitals are misleading because these are actually, a lot of them are pass-throughs to transfer into her capital projects. So the amount spent is misleading here as well, which of course brings this amount down. What I should do is probably take out the capital for her, because it's not as clear and clear cut as for other departments.
Right.
But these funds, all of these expense funds are funded by the revenues from the enterprise fund.
Right.
Did you have questions about the general fund, or?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Moulton.
Thank you, Director Nardi, for the presentation. I have some observations mixed in with some questions. As you noted, on the parking revenue is up significantly, which is a good economic sign, I think, for downtown. And I think it partly reflects success in the change of hours for which the city is charging for parking. But I also noticed that the mobile app revenue is substantial. It's at 212%. And is part of that the fact that now the mobile app is usable on virtually every parking space in Northampton?
I believe so. I think more people, yes.
So
I think, yep.
It's more spaces. You can use it on more spaces, and presumably more people are used now to using that. So that's a good sign. What did you say on the interest on investments, which continues to be very strong? What did you say that the increased projection is for FY26 on that?
1,065%.
Wow. Okay.
So,
And
yep.
that is dependent though on the same, as you pointed out, the same vehicle being available for use, which the city has taken advantage of now for two fiscal years.
3 years. We
3
moved into
years.
it in FY 2023.
Oh,
So,
okay, so 3 years it's been available, the city has used it, and it's impossible to forecast whether it will remain to be available. At what point in the fiscal year might it not be available?
So, so I know that our treasurer had a conversation with the bank today. They met as they normally do, and that question was asked whether this vehicle could be removed or discontinued, and it could be. They didn't indicate that it would be. I'm not sure if that, if the interest rates dropped enough that it didn't make sense for them to have this vehicle. I'm not sure under what circumstances it would be discontinued, but their statement that it could be means it contains risk for us. And it also contains risk as we increase that amount on whatever the interest rates are. I mean, as the president and the Federal Reserve argue about interest rates, if they drop, that will also impact that line.
Yes, yes. Well, given the recent experience, I mean, I understand the calculated risk that's involved, but I feel that it's a comfortable calculated risk. But it could be significant. It could mean significantly less revenue if that vehicle were no longer available.
That's correct.
Okay. My last observation is on the sheet showing the meals, lodging, and cannabis
Mhm.
revenues. I think the best news on this sheet is that we now have 6 straight quarters of year-to-year comparison on the cannabis, which is up, which to me is a positive, definitely a positive trend that has reversed the negative trend that we saw, as you pointed out, a couple of years ago. So again, to me, it suggests that it's a reasonable projection to continue increasing the cannabis revenue. I'm not quite sure how that is explained. I don't know if you have any theories about why after a downturn we've seen this now trend of again increased revenues.
I do not know enough about the business of that business to hazard a theory.
Yeah, I was wondering if they were new businesses or the existing businesses
Yeah.
just doing more business.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not sure.
Now, also,
there are, well, can I just help
Yes.
answer that? There
Sure.
are no new ones,
Right,
Councilor
okay.
Maori. Remember that we put a cap on that.
Yes, we
And
did, but we did lose some, and I thought there was,
well,
yes.
yeah, we did lose a couple, but there have been 10, I think, operating consistently over the last couple of years, and there 10 remain open.
Right, so probably no more new
Also,
business.
the one that's on Main Street, that place is busy. And I can see why. It's walking distance. It's a good location. You just go down there, you see people coming in and going out.
Yes, good location.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know if it's, as neighboring states opened and other, businesses around us and other communities opened, whether people were trying out different places and now we're kind of settling back into what may be a norm for us. I'm uncertain.
my unsubstantiated human social theory is that as we can, as we since cannabis has become legal in their businesses, that the longer that goes, the longer it becomes more kind of normalized, and you possibly are bringing in newer customers very late in the game. And the more, the more it becomes an institutionalized kind of norm, the more comfortable certain folks who weren't, going to those
Oh, maybe.
establishments before. But that's just my guess. I like to guess.
There you go.
Okay, let's see. Does anyone have any other questions, or if Director Nardi wanted to make any more comments before we moved on? No.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Director
Thank
Nardi. We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Right.
you.
Thank you, Charlene.
Okay. All right, no items referred to committee. Okay, structure and format of the budget hearings. I just wanted, I made a kind of, and my formatting didn't translate very well, but you get the gist. I wanted to just go over this with you all, because we had 11 and a half hours of budget hearings last year, and and they're for the public, but I would like to keep them as concise as possible and kind of think about how to make them briefer for everyone's benefit. So and so I discussed that with Laura. Laura was really helpful, and President Jarrett. We decided we should give more guidelines to the departments about how long we'd like their presentations to be, and yeah, and one thing I'd like to hear your thoughts on what is that, let me just look at it. So I mean, these budget hearings are for the public, and I would really like to have the presentations and then have a section for the public to make comments and also to ask questions, and usually Councilor Moulton will write them down. And so I was thinking if we went right from the presentation to the public, it may shorten things a bit. Counselors tend to make comments initially around immediately after the presentation, and then after the public goes. And I was trying to steer us a little to having us as counselors having one kind of section of of discussion and questions. But I'm open to feedback. And if you have any other ideas to kind of rein in the length of time for our budget hearings. Yes, Councilor Labarge.
Yes, thank you. If I'm looking at this for Tuesday, May 27th,
Yeah.
presentation by Commissioner O'Leary, 15 minutes max, right?
Yeah.
And then you have comments and questions from the public, 2 minutes each limit. What if they talk for about an hour?
You
on that
mean
subject?
not having a total?
Yeah,
Yeah, we could do that. We haven't done that before. And I actually wanted to talk to touch base with to Solicitor Seawald about just reminding me about public hearings. We tend not to put a cap on the overall amount of public comment, but we could discuss that.
because you got also, right after public comment, comments and questions from finance committee meetings, and then relaying of any public comment questions.
Right. And I think last year there was the initial comments and questions from public, and then we would circle back for a second or third round. I was hoping to have one section for the public and not limit it, but make it one section and
All
not go back.
Okay,
So that's partially why I didn't put a overall limit, but we can
Okay.
discuss that if you'd like.
whatever finance committee suggests,
Yeah.
I'm game. Either which way.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to go right from presentations to the public. I think we'll have to be a little disciplined because I generally have questions in my head. So it may be something we don't do again, but I wonder if it wouldn't kind of gently kind of corral everyone if we had defined sections for the public and for council.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Marissa.
I think that looks like a good idea. And the kind of reducing the back and forth between public comment and our musings, makes sense. And you said you need to talk to Attorney Seawald, for more clarification, but I mean, maybe we put, and they might be more aspirational, but
Yeah.
sort of total amounts of time, per department. I mean, at least if it's out there that folks you know, know that we're trying to keep a time frame. It's also helpful to the department heads, I think, to know what to expect.
True.
But so that's what I
No,
was-
that's a good idea because I mean, I can't imagine there's any, you know, there isn't a reason why we can't. I'm thinking of like NESC, you know, how we put time limits by each item. And of course, if they go over, you know, nothing major happens, but it does kind of give you an idea that, and I guess part of it is like, for example, last year, I thought we were wrapping up DPW and then we got like almost an hour of, pedal people.
My comment,
And so like, I think I'm just not as that great at estimating how long
Right.
each department, but I could try to do that from past years. Cause that was.
Well,
much
that was kind of
longer.
a product of a thing that had
Yeah,
sort of came up, you know, like, and,
right. So I think we could, you know, just try it. If we're off. And I can also just check with Solicitor Seawald about, you know, actual hard limits, but we could probably put some, maybe I could look at last year and kind of less than that, but you know, get a sense of how long percentage wise we talked for each department.
right, because you got comments and questions from the public, 2 minutes each limit. And that's pretty decent.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about making it 3 and then having a overall limit,
Mm-hmm.
but I think this way we can get more people, you know, people's comments and questions.
Right.
I wonder if we could make, like the sign up sheets like we do for just public comment generally, but, you know, do it by department. And we may find that we're not, and we don't with public comment either, if we still have time left under our rule, you know, other folks who come up and decide that they want to speak after the fact. But maybe that might help us at the beginning of the night.
Wait, can you say
know
that one
if
more
there was
time?
an unanticipated, point of comment that we hadn't seen. It was sort of like the pedal people last year
Yeah.
that kind of came up, and if we'd had a sign up sheet, you know, kind of by department, maybe we would
Oh,
have
like,
just had we would have known at the beginning of the evening, just at the beginning of the evening, not
right.
anything
No,
like that.
that's a great idea. Like we could have
Yes.
2 separate sign-up sheets.
Yep.
Like for that night, it would be Health and Human Services and the schools.
Yeah.
And then we
Right,
would,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, not to preclude anybody from.
right. And we couldn't do it on Zoom, you know, in the same way, but we could, but it would give us an idea.
I like
We
that.
could do a show of hands on Zoom. We could also just do a quick sort of like, as we
Right.
get to the thing, if you think you'll have a question, just to get a
Yeah.
count. I don't know,
Right.
maybe that'd be too much to manage, but.
No,
might-
I think that'd be, and I think last year you know, we struggled with like, where do you put just general budget questions? And of course, you know, people can talk about anything at any point in any of these,
Right.
comment sessions. They can talk about really any part of the budget, but I think we had had added general kind of budget times, and I'm not going to do that now because they can you know, it might be odd if they can only come on the May 27th and they want to talk about the DPW, and then, you know, they use that comment session for, you know, Department of Health and Human Services. Well, you know, they get their comment. And so that was one thing we did last year that I wasn't planning to do again, is just have, you know, just a general comment section. And I guess the other thing we did last year that I don't have on here is at the end of the budget hearings, basically we had a question and answer for all other departments. And what ended up happening was the department heads kind of had to stick around for a very long period. And there may have been 1 or 2 questions, but what we could do is write down any questions that people have for other departments and get them to those other departments. That might be tricky because people don't always give us their, you know, we'll have to tell them to email, or we'll have no way to get that information to them necessarily. But so I was just going to eliminate that because I didn't want those departments standing, or, you know, being on standby the
I
whole
like
time.
that idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have a little more time if there's any other, anything else comes up that, if you have any other ideas, but
Mhm. We'll think.
yeah, I thought it was just a little too long for frankly, for staff and for counselors so this way. And I will just do that one comment and question comment period and not probably circle back.
Sounds
If you
good.
think that's okay. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, the other thing is that if there are questions that arise for other departments that are not present at the hearings, those could be addressed at the June 5th full council meeting when the budget is actually
yeah.
deliberated. So I think I think you're right that it makes more sense to have that option rather than have a lot of department heads uh, who aren't making presentations present at the budget hearing.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that looks, and I know I just got some emails. People are interested in the Kappa department's presentation. But I did kind of combine it with central services because so much of it was interrelated, and I'll talk to them about figuring it out. That's why, for that DPW in the schools, like there was an extra 5 minutes. I don't think I'm going to time them, but I wanted to kind of give them a suggestion.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say also, it's also, we should always be reminding people that, that if they access the budget book online, that so it doesn't, the budget presentations, like if we had a budget presentation from every single department, which we don't necessarily do, but everybody's stuff is in there. So we should be reminding people that if they might find that there are questions about a particular department may be answered if they go to the budget book and, remind remind our fellow counselors not on finance that that's a place they can be directing constituents if they have questions.
Yeah,
if they
that's a good
email
idea. Maybe we should link it onto the agenda even.
Yes, that's a very good
What do
idea.
you, yeah,
That's
just,
total communication right there.
okay, that's a good idea.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. I think that's all I have to say, but yeah, if you have any ideas, besides that, please just let me know. And I'll just get a refresher from Solicitor Seawald about, the nature of public hearings. And so I'll add the link to the budget and I'll add kind of times for each department,
Yeah.
overall times.
Yeah, link to the budget and also note where it is available in hard copy for
Right.
those who don't want to look at it online.
True.
I believe it's the libraries and other places.
Okay. I think let's see. I don't think there's any new business.
No.
All right. Okay, well, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd move to adjourn.
Second,
Okay, roll call.
Counselor Maori,
Yes.
Counselor Moulton,
yes.
Counselor Elkins,
Yes.
and Counselor Labarge.
Yes.
Guys,
Okay.
Good night.
Good
Thank you.
bye.
Have a good
Thank-
night.
Thank you.